My goodness, this has been a day for spoilers, and if you haven't seen my most recent one on Rona, Shieldred's Faithful, make sure you check that one out when you get a chance. But don't leave just yet, because on this episode, I'm going to be talking about what might be the most unique commander that we have seen so far. And that commander is, well, a little blurry. I'm not sure exactly why the image that was shown off is kind of blurry. I don't know. But to solve that, here, custom magic card version of this. Again, a huge thank you to MTG.design for existing so I can do things like that. But yes, even though, as you can see, the symbol is different because of the custom, magic design, yes, this is very much a real commander and a real spoiler. I just, wanted this version so it's easier to talk about. You know what I mean. Anyways, Ivy Gleeful Spellthief is a 2/1 fairy rogue with flying that costs green-blue. And on top of that, of course, because, that would be pretty boring if that was it, whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy Gleeful Spellthief, you may copy that spell. The copy targets Ivy, a copy of an aura spell becomes a token. And that is a fantastic reminder because, my goodness, that is a very interesting and unique design because there's a lot of really cool things that you can do with this, a lot of off-the-wall things that you might not think are possible, or ones, more cards especially, that might not see a lot of play elsewhere, but can be fantastic with this commander. So yeah, this is not your typical, Simic green-blue, draw a ton of cards. Okay, well, maybe we can draw a ton of cards, but it's not land-based. This is not a deck where we're like, oh, let's just ramp and ramp and ramp and ramp and ramp and then cast a big spell, draw lots of cards, and then lamp, and yeah, that's how Simic players sound apparently. Anyways, I definitely need another cup of coffee today, but here we are. Yeah, this is a very interesting design, one that I definitely did not expect to see, and one that can do some pretty cool things. So, just like they say, don't judge a book by its cover. Just because it's a Simic commander doesn't mean you should just be like, oh, no, never mind. Nothing interesting could happen with that one. And yeah, definitely don't judge, I guess, an image by its blurriness. Because, yeah, we can make non-blurry image versions that we can read better. I am a bit off the rails, I guess that's what happens when you make a ton of episodes, but regardless, if you are interested in this commander, make sure you check out the card list link in the description below, because it's going to have every single card that I talk about in this episode, and yeah, when a new exciting commander like this one comes out, and yeah, I definitely think a lot of players out there are going to be really excited about this one. Well, sometimes certain cards that work well with that commander tend to go up in price sooner rather than later, so you might want to pick up some of those cards sooner rather than later. And one more thing, real quick, a massive thank you to Eddie and the rest of my playgroup for the help on this one. Yeah, there's a lot of spicy things that they brought up on what you can do with this. But of course, if I make any mistakes, blame Eddie, because it's always Eddie's fault, not mine. And now with all that said, let's jump into it. So first up, yeah, obviously, if you've got any kind of a spell that targets a creature, as long as you're targeting a creature that's not your commander, you get that spell essentially twice. So yeah, just, think about cards like Swirling Wisps, or Viridescent Wisps, or, Slip Through Space. Low-to-the-ground cantrips that target a single creature like these can be incredible with this commander. Swirling Wisp says, target creature becomes blue until end of turn, untap that creature, draw a card, and it gets instant for just a blue. Viridian Wisp says, target creature becomes green and gets +1/+0 until end of turn, draw a card, and Slip Through Space says, target creature can be blocked this turn, draw a card. Again, normally these are just cantrips drawing you a single card, but with this commander, as long as you're targeting a creature, whether it's your creature or someone else's, you're getting that twice. Again, one copy for that and one copy for commander. So you draw 2 cards for the price of 1. And yeah, that's near ancestral recall value, essentially. When it comes to, the first two, essentially, instant speed, 1 mana, draw 2. Yeah, that's fantastic. But of course, that's not even the most exciting thing that you can do with this commander. Because, yeah, like the reminder text for the commander even mentioned, auras can actually be basically duplicated with this premise. So let's start with a very strange aura, but one that can be very effective in this deck with Frog Tongue. When it enters the battlefield, you draw a card, and the enchanted creature essentially has reach. Now, that doesn't really matter all that much. What does matter is, yeah, again, this is basically a 1-mana cantrip where you're drawing 2. And I guess, I mean, giving one of your other creatures reach can be very helpful, absolutely. I mean, giving your commander reach really doesn't matter because you already have flying. You know what I mean? And of course, we will get into other ways where you can benefit based on enchantments coming into play and having a certain number of them. But yeah, next up, Karametra's Favor. Let's talk about that one. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. This one does cost 2 mana, 1 in a green. But it also says enchanted creature has tap and 1 mana of any color. So it basically turns your, creature into a mana dork. And in this case, again, we get one of our other creatures to have this, and then our commander as well. Now we get 2 mana dorks for the price of 1, essentially. 2 cards for the price of 2 mana. And each of those creatures are tapping for mana, so we basically just got our mana back that we already put into this. Another cantripping aura that we can utilize is Shielding Plaques. It has when it enters battlefield, draw a card. An enchanted creature can't be the target of spells or abilities your opponents control. So this is a fantastic way that, again, for basically 3 mana, we can permanently protect one of our creatures as well as our commander with that, basically hexproof. So yeah, there are a lot of value-centric auras that we get even more value out of because of the way that this commander works. So while we're building up these auras on other creatures, we are building up the token copies of those auras on our commander. And yeah, this can get pretty out of control pretty quickly. Speaking of out of control, though, one quite strange interaction that actually works with this commander is Mutate. Again, Ivy reads, whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature other than Ivy, you may copy that spell. Mutate, which we see on Migratory Greathorn for 2 and a green, says, if you cast this spell for its mutate cost, put it over or under target non-human creature you own. They mutate into the creature on top plus all abilities from under it. So by mutating this onto a non-human creature we own, we also get to mutate a copy of it onto Ivy. Because again, obviously Ivy is not, a human. Fairy rogue, not human. And of course, it says, whenever this creature mutates, search your library, basic land card, put it on the battlefield, tap, then shuffle your library. So, essentially, double mutate, fun times for all. Well, I mean, okay, not for all, just for you. Regardless, of course, there are some other spicy mutate creatures out there, like Gemrazor and Sawtooth Demolisher. Gemrazor is a 4/4 reach and trample. It says, when this creature mutates, destroy target artifact or enchantment opponent controls. And Sawtooth Demolisher says, mutate for a 3 and a green. It's a 6/6 with trample. And whenever this creature mutates, destroy target non-creature permanent. Its controller creates a 3/3 green beast creature token. So yeah, we can get a ton of value out of mutating our creatures and mutating our commander as well throughout the game. And actually, there's some other spicy things that mutate can help with that we'll get to here in a little bit. But next up, let's talk about even more absurd ways to generate value, and let's start with Season of Growth. It says, whenever a creature enters the battlefield under control, scry 1, so that is a lovely effect, but more importantly, whenever we cast a spell that targets a creature you control, draw a card. So we get a nice additional benefit on top of all of these other benefits for actually targeting our creature to get this whole thing going. And speaking of targeting a creature, well, Spellwild Oof is one that really wants to be targeted. Spells that target it cost 2 less to cast. So this is an incredible target for our targeting spells, and again, that just makes it so that we're essentially not only cheating on mana cost, but again, also just getting a second copy of it for our commander at a discount. But speaking of great targets, of course, we can have a lot of them in this deck, like Gnarlback Rhino. Gnarlback Rhino is a 4/4 trample, and it says, whenever you cast a spell that targets Gnarlback Rhino, draw a card. So again, a fantastic target that actually benefits us for targeting it. So on top of, again, all the other benefits that we're getting for actually targeting our creatures, when we have creatures that really want to be targeted, we get absurd value. Which, I mean, I guess it's not surprising that I'm saying the words absurd value for a Simic commander. But again, this is the kind of Simic commander that, I'm more okay with than just, oh yeah, lands and draw. This commander definitely is one that is a lot more unique, and again, you can utilize cards that rarely see play elsewhere. I mean, where in the world have you ever seen Spellwild Oof, or even like Gnarlback Rhino? And of course, you can take advantage of heroic cards as well, with cards like Meltus Astronomer, Sage of Hours, and Artisan of Forms. Meltus Astronomer says, when you cast a spell that targets it, look at the top 3 cards of your library. You may reveal an enchantment card from among them, put it in your hand, the rest bomb your library in any order. Now, obviously, with this kind of a commander, you can take in a couple different directions. Obviously, you can meld some things together, but yeah, if you're pretty enchantment heavy, this can provide you an absurd amount of card advantage throughout the game. Speaking of absurd, next up there's Sage of Hours, which is an incredible card. And yeah, it can give you a lot of value in this deck. When you cast a spell that targets it, put a +1 counter on it. And by removing all counters from it, for each 5 counters moved this way, take an extra turn after this one. So again, if you target this enough times, and of course there are other ways to benefit by getting counters on something by targeting it, and yeah, you can include those if you really want to work with this. But yeah, if you target this enough times, essentially, extra turn time for you. And speaking of a lot of value, Artisan of Forms is a clone, but kind of in a really weird way. Because whenever you cast a spell that targets it, you may have become a copy of target creature and gain this ability. So if there's a very powerful creature out there, awesome, let's just target this and change it to that creature. And actually, there's kind of a sneaky thing that you can do that we'll talk about here in a second. Because I'd really like to thank, those in my play group for pointing out cards like, Arenicus's Vile Duplication. Making a copy of a creature is incredibly powerful, especially, when it's a legendary creature like our commander, because this says create token that's copy of target creature control, except the token has flying and isn't legendary if your creature is legendary. So yeah, a second copy of our commander can be incredible, because then again, every single time we, target a creature that isn't, one of our commanders, we get 2 copies of whatever spell that is targeting each one of them. Or you know what I mean. 1 spell of each targeting them. Extra spells, okay? Now, obviously, the same can be said about, a clone like Spark Double, which can actually, make a clone copy, of a legendary creature, but it's not legendary. So, yeah, again, the more and more of our commander we can have in play, the better. That being said, because of Mutate, even standard clones like Clone will work. And that's kind of the sneaky play that I allude to with Artisan of Forms. And again, thank you to my play group for pointing this out, but yeah, if you mutate onto your commander, and then you say, okay, whatever this mutate one is again, maybe Gem Razor. Okay, I put that on top of my commander. Then what happens is, again, Mutate says they mutate into the creature on top plus all abilities from under it. So our commander is no longer legendary then, because, Gem Razor is just a creature-beast, not a legendary creature-beast. So yeah, that essentially replaces our commander's creature type and, I guess whatever what's it called when it's legendary? Super type. That's it. Anyways, it replaces that, so it is no longer legendary. And then because of that, it sells the commander's ability, but because of that, now we can actually just clone that, which, is basically, a Gem Razor, just a standard Gem Razor, but it's really our commander's ability underneath too. So yeah, we can get absurd with cloning effects then, making a ton of copies of our commander, Gem Razor thing or whatnot. And yeah, again, this can just get ridiculous. A lot of Simic decks out there can get ridiculous. This one can get especially ridiculous. And don't even get me started on ridiculous, because, Eddie also pointed out Scoot Swarm, Spawn Wraith. Creatures like these are fantastic mutate targets in and of themselves. Scoot Swarm is a 1/1 insect that says whenever a land enters the battlefield under control, create a 1/1 green insect creature token. If you control 6 or more lands, create a token that's a copy of Scoot Swarm instead. So if you mutate on top of this, great, you got, probably a better creature. And then every single time a land comes into play, again, you still have that landfall trigger, so you get a copy of that, newly mutated creature. And yeah, that can just get absolutely ridiculous. In a similar way, there's Spawn Wraith, a 2/2 with Trample that says when deals combat damage to a player, put a token that's a copy of Spawn Wraith onto the battlefield. So yeah, any of these kind of creatures that can essentially duplicate themselves are great with mutate creatures as well. So you're not going to be lacking in, fantastic targeting options when you're trying to target something else other than your commander. And of course, when it comes to tokens, well, we've got plenty of great ways to duplicate tokens, and that obviously not only applies to, that Scoot Swarm example, but yeah, with that Aura example as well. And the Mutate one too, I guess. Because Adric Knapp Twincasters says, if one of our tokens we create on your control, twice that many of those tokens are created instead. And of course, we have the exact same effect sent on Parallel Lives in Doubling Season. And yeah, okay, if I don't mention those, people are going to be like in the comments below, well, what about those? Yes, there you go. There they are. They're extremely expensive cards. They're very good. And a lot of decks out there, including this one. But yeah, doubling up your tokens can be incredible in a lot of ways, especially with this commander. And also make sure you keep in mind Twinning Staff, which says if you would copy a spell 1 or more times, instead copy it that many times plus an additional time, you may choose new targets for the additional copy. Again, our commander is copying the spell, so we get an extra copy. Again, whether that's, an instant, like, one of those cantrippy spells, or whether that's an aura, we get an extra copy. So yeah, this can really add up throughout the game and give us a ton of value. And again, I guess if there is one word that describes Simic, yeah, it's value. In this commander, the more you dig into it, the more and more value-centric it is. But yeah, depending on what direction you want to take this deck, let's say you want to lean even heavier into enchantments, you can get an absurd amount of value with Eidolon of Blossoms. It has Constellation. Whenever it or another enchantment enters the battlefield under control, draw a card. So every single time you cast one of those auras, you have, well, that coming into play, and then the copy coming into play for your commander. So you are drawing 2 cards just for, one aura, essentially. And obviously, if you've got ways, like we just talked about, to get even more tokens, yes, then it's even more value out of this. Of course, there are also ways that you can even save mana on these enchantments as well to make things get even more ridiculous quicker. Herald of the Pantheon says enchantment spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, and whenever you cast an enchantment spell, you gain 1 life. Now, that extra life gain is nice, but yeah, that cost reduction can be huge. And speaking of huge, finally, let's talk about some cards like Ancestral Mask and Nylea's Colossus, which can pretty easily help your commander take out your opponents. Ancestral Mask says, enchant creature gets +2/+2 for each other enchantment on the battlefield. Again, if you're going with this aura strategy with a ton of enchantments, again, every single time you get 1 aura, you're going to be getting 2, so yeah, your aura count can get incredibly high incredibly quickly. And yeah, your commander is very easily going to be a 2-shot KO, and again with evasion, with flying, and potentially even a 1-shot KO. Speaking of which, Nylea's Colossus is gross with this commander. When it enters the battlefield or another enchantment enters the battlefield under your control, double target creature's power and toughness until end of turn. So let's even just pretend that our commander has no additional pump effects, no Ancestral Mask on it, nothing else, okay? Our commander is a 2/1 simply, okay? We cast 1 aura spell. Again, let's just say it's that frog tongue kind of thing or whatever it was, all right? We cast 1 aura spell and we get 2 auras out of it, right? Entering the battlefield. Cool. We get our trigger from Nylea's Colossus twice. We double our commander's power twice. So we go from 2 to 4 to 8. Then let's say we play again any other aura, no matter what it is, again, Shielded Plaques, whatever it is, okay? Cool. We get that trigger again twice. So we go from 8 power to 16 to 32. All we did was play 2 auras, of which, we're already getting a ton of value from our commander with. But with this Nylea's Colossus in play, now our commander is hitting for, what I just say, like 32? 32 damage in the air? Yeah, that can get gross really, really quickly. But now as this episode is coming to a close, it's time for me to give you my final thoughts on Ivy Gleeful Spellthief. Yeah, this commander has a lot of potential, and I can see a ton of players out there being very excited about it. I mean, the amount of value that you can generate with some very, strange and off-the-wall things is pretty cool. And I didn't even mention, too, that, I really probably should have mentioned this, but yeah, whenever a player casts a spell that targets only a single creature, that counts your opponent's casting things as well, obviously. So yeah, if they've got any of those, cantrippy spells that are like, hey, target creature does this or whatnot, you get to, if you want to copy it, you can copy that too. There's just a lot of layers to this commander. There's a lot of cool things that you can do. There's a lot of gross things you can do. And yeah, if you get multiple copies of this in play, things are just going to get absurd. So, of course, yeah, I mean, like I mentioned with pretty much all these quick takes, yes, this one especially, though, because I think this one's going to be one of the most popular commanders of the set, if I am correct. But yeah, make sure you check out that link in the description below for the card list that I talked about on this episode, because again, when new exciting commanders do get spoiled, sometimes cards that work well with them go up in price sooner rather than later, and yeah, people don't tend to wait until the actual, set is released and the cards are actually out and they have them in hand. Sometimes players, buy the cards well in advance, like, right now. So yeah, make sure you check that out. And of course, make sure you check out my other quick takes and spoilers. Make sure you're staying tuned to this channel for even more exciting quick takes and spoilers coming up. And with that, the show is coming to a close, so it's my turn to hear from you. So in the comments below, let me know your thoughts on this episode are, and as always, thanks again and have a good one. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. We also have a ton of brand new t-shirt designs in stock, so make sure you check out those as well. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG Player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all of their support.